Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, everyone. Welcome to episode 33 of the FusionCast. We've reached almost a third of the way to 100. That's pretty significant. It seems like every week is a new milestone, which is pretty exciting. So thanks, everybody, for watching. Thanks for joining us and for keeping it going. This week, we have yet another guest. He's not really a guest, but he's one of us. But Rob Coventry is joining us. Rob came to the Fusion Menagerie recently and is kind of the global sales lead for Fusion. So Rob had previously been doing Defender things and consulting things and other things. So Rob, welcome to the team.
Glad to be here.
Welcome to the asylum. So this week, our subject is something that has been kind of bouncing around for a while. We've had a lot of discussions with partners and customers and sellers and Red Hat folks and kind of all of our internal teams around the different classes of storage or kinds of storage that are readily available and most commonly deployed in a Kubernetes, i.e. Red Hat OpenShift environment. Specifically, we're going to talk about container-ready storage, and within container-ready storage, more specifically about CSI, the Container Storage Interface API, and then we're going to talk about true container native storage, i.e. Fusion. So there are some important distinctions between the two. There are some similarities, but there's also some things we want to make sure you understand. So when you find yourself in a sales situation or you're speaking to a partner and you get a question like, well, I already have, vendor X storage. They have a CSI driver that I can get for free. So I'm good. Like I don't really need anything else. And we want to address that, but also partially dispel some of the mythology around like why that may or may not be the right answer. So that's the topic for this week. We're not going to go into like super gory detail because this is a whole very complicated discussion. I will put in a plug for the recent community webinar we did with JC Lopez, where we went fairly deep on CSI. You can find that on the IBM Storage community. I'll put somewhere here a link to that on the screen where he goes into more detail. So Pete, Rob, let's dive right into it. First, let's start with CSI. So Pete, tell us about CSI.
Yeah. So as you mentioned, Randy, CSI, it's an industry standard architected interface that's supported by the community. And CSI has a good set of history. Actually, you have a good point. Go listen to JC and Randy's, webcast if you want to learn all about CSI and the intricacies. But really, some of the key messages we want you to take away is, yes, it's a great way to use your existing storage. What you need to know is, and you need to check, is whether your storage vendor has written a CSI plugin. And CSI has gone through a couple of different generations where now everything has been extracted out so that each of the storage vendors can write their own plugins, and you just need to make sure that that's available. Mm-hmm. Secondly, though, and this is probably the more important part of the, and that's a good way to get started. Secondly, though, is think about what your needs are going to be long term. So CSI is an industry standard. It's an architected interface, but it has limitations in terms of what the API supports. And in particular, hopefully most people here are familiar with the Fusion 5, the data persistence, resilience, security, mobility, and cataloging that we've been talking about with Fusion. Specifically, what you get with CSI, you get all of the provisioning capabilities and the persistence capabilities, so the ability to do block, file, RWO, RWX, that's all included as part of CSI. Additionally, you get a little bit of the resilience story, the snapshots, but that's it. You don't get the advanced backup restore. You don't get the advanced disaster recovery solutions, cybersecurity solutions that we've been talking about with Fusion. So it's a great way to get started, but you need to ask yourself long term, what am I going to need this for? And, those are some of the key things you need to be thinking about.
Yeah, agreed. And I think you touched on something that is important, which is when you're starting out, again, you probably already have some storage infrastructure in-house. You can get the CSI driver. It's, in a sense, a way to kind of virtualize the storage for Kubernetes, for consumption by Kubernetes to a limited degree. So Rob, thinking back to like the days of, SVC and now Spectrum Virtualized, the messaging is not wholly different. I mean, there are some similarities, right? It's investment protection, openness, flexibility, right?
I mean, in fact, we sell container ready storage to clients and have been for quite a while, right? But we've been also telling and touting the benefits of container native and what that does. And I've always equated it to automation, to the benefits of, automatically provisioning storage as required based on how the application designer or developer wants it, their application. I can provision by policy with container native. I can say I want gold, silver, bronze types of storage based on performance, availability. And so then basically my understanding is what I get with container native, I check a box and I get by policy storage for my app based on the policy that's established, which, okay, that's great. But recently I saw, one of our competitors talking about some stuff that they've got where they've wrapped some stuff around CSI and they're getting mimicking the same kind of capabilities of, well, I can automatically provision storage for my application that's in a cluster. And then as I need extra storage, when I reach a certain policy of capacity, it provisions more storage. So Pete, one of the things that I've been trying to figure out is, how do we differentiate that kind of what I'll call container native like CSI mimic
roll your own
what we do, right?
Yeah, and it's an excellent point, and I'm glad you brought it up, Rob, because really one of the key central points here is it's a bit of a philosophical conversation, right? Are you buying into a Kubernetes way of doing business, of, setting these kinds of environments up and supporting them? That's very different, than the traditional worlds that we're used to, with virtual machines and even bare metal. Kubernetes, as you guys know, one of the fundamental underlying concepts is automate the heck out of everything, right? And, this is really, the words are very important here when we say container native storage. What we're talking about is all of those data services, even the controller code that you would normally run on that external storage array runs natively on Kubernetes, on OpenShift. Mm-hmm. Why would you want that? Well, think about it. If I'm making this philosophical jump to start adopting Kubernetes, wouldn't it be great if all of my services took advantage of that Kubernetes infrastructure that's available to me, the microservices, the ability to move things around and re-provision things on the fly? And this is all because of the automation, because of the operators that are built into OpenShift.
The operator framework, the operator infrastructure and framework within Kubernetes that can be used as a way to deliver those data services also kind of obviates the need to have yet another set of skills required to, build that automation yourself, as Rob talked about. You can, if you're clever, you can script it, you can use Ansible. There's ways you can mimic the behavior of a true container native storage solution. But why would you want to waste your valuable, development cycles and skills on infrastructure plumbing when there isn't really an enormous benefit? It's not particularly sustainable. It's more likely to fail in ways that will be probably unpredictable and maybe difficult to achieve. Like, why would you not want to have a more fully functional, fully integrated solution in Kubernetes?
So let me play devil's advocate though. So I'm the application owner of a big enterprise app, and what I care about is cost and performance and availability. I can go get a CSI interface that's got this wrapper, and it's going to automatically provision things. So my ops people can set up a policy where my developers deploy the app, and it just provisions storage as needed. And if I need extra storage, it just does it. What am I missing here, Pete?
I think you've summed it up pretty good. There's, a productivity angle to this. And this is what I really love about when I first learned about Kubernetes is like, they're trying to take work out of the system here, right?
Yeah, of course. And for the benefit of time to value and being able to respond to the business as required, right? Yeah. I get that, but I got that with the CSI thing, right?
No,
you kind of don't. I mean, you have it to a degree, but you're now if you think about who are you reliant upon in the data path, right? So you're reliant upon your application, which is either in-house or third party or open source or whatever. You're reliant upon the CSI layer. So you're reliant upon the vendor support of an open source API. You're reliant upon your storage vendor's support for their wrapper around CSI and revving that to support new releases of CSI, new releases of Kubernetes, et cetera, et cetera. And you're reliant on your storage vendor for the downstream protocol conversion that goes from the file designation or the block designation down to the device. So that's a lot of
okay, but let's say I accept that. What am I not getting that container native, in particular Fusion, gives me in that case?
Well, I'll say one more thing, and I'll turn it over to Pete.
Sorry.
The other benefit is that you'll get, back in the early days of VMware and sort of virtualization, one of the big challenges was what used to be called the IO blender effect or the bottleneck, right? So you'd have a widely distributed farm or pool of VMs, and you would try to leverage existing SAN storage, and you try to route all that IO traffic into your SAN. And if you didn't load balance that correctly, which was not an easy thing to do, it was kind of an art form, you would get dramatic concentrations of IO traffic down a single pipe, which would create massive performance and scalability.
So you're adding an operational risk and complexity to the deployment, is what you're saying.
Correct. And you're also adding a potential design flaw, right? That if not compensated for at the beginning, can result in really significant performance problems.
You know what else just occurred to me as you were describing that is that also means my storage isn't close to my app. Or may not be, because it's not container native. So I don't necessarily have the most optimal performance data path, right?
Right. Yeah. In fact, Randy, I've been coining the term IO hurricane because I think it goes from being a tornado in the virtualized world. And we all know VDI workloads were the worst at this. You'd fire up 1,000 different machines and they all have different workload profiles.
All at the same time in the day. Yeah.
And you can bring your storage system to its knees very quickly. Now take all of those applications and decompose them into potentially hundreds of microservices. All of them, and not all of them are going to be, need persistence, right? But a fair amount probably will. And they're all going to have their own IO workload profiles. Now you've just magnified this problem tenfold. And this is another reason why, the key difference between container ready storage and container native storage, to your point, Rob, that you just made a couple minutes ago about locating the storage, the compute resources closer to the applications has significant advantages.
Well, and one other thing I would add too is from a sort of design philosophy or design ethos perspective, if you think about container native storage as one element of your overall Kubernetes or OpenShift cluster, right? It's one of the services or one of the operator sets that support your application. It's one of many, right? Customers are less inclined as they modernize and push more towards containers and microservices and true hybrid cloud. They're less inclined to buy point solutions. So they don't want to buy a storage solution or a data services solution or a network solution. They want a platform. They want a flexible hybrid cloud platform that they can post up wherever they want, right? That makes their workloads and their data easily mobile, transparently movable and safe and secure and resilient and all those things. So if you are adopting container native storage today, you're already building the foundation for that, right? You're kind of laying the foundation for that integrated platform. If you continue to operate with CSI, and even if you kind of wrap it and automate it and, kind of beautify it a little bit so it looks more container native, you're still stuck in that design paradigm and you're not able to fully adopt the platform, hybrid cloud platform story, right? So and that's a little esoteric, but I mean, it's a design thought that I think architects and platform engineers and SRE teams are thinking about these days.
It's a very
Pete, I'm sorry. I'm still looking for what else am I missing here? I get what we've talked about so far, but we tout our Fusion 5 and all of its benefits. Does CSI prevent me from getting all of the availability and other benefits of the Fusion 5?
So backup, disaster recovery, these are well understood problems in the storage industry, right? I mean,
So I'm not getting backup with the CSI. I'd have to have another third-party product probably to do that.
but then the question becomes, do you want to go through all the work and effort to integrate that, test it, make sure it works in production, but then also support it downstream too, because we know software has rules, right?
Right.
And this is interesting, and Randy already touched on this, the movement towards people thinking more about platforms and less about, disparate point solutions. And I think this is where Fusion has a really good story together with OpenShift. It's becoming the industry's best platform for Kubernetes because OpenShift delivers all the core Kubernetes services and all the other 300 projects that are included, or I'm sure it's probably up to 500 now that are part of OpenShift. But here's the thing, and this is another philosophical shift that even I've had, is we keep talking about data services and storage. They just become an extension of the platform. And the key to being an extension to the platform is how well they're integrated, how easy they're to use with the platform. So you really have to make some of these, philosophical shifts and think about the Kubernetes context in that way to really start to understand the power of this architecture and where people are headed and why they want to go in this direction.
So is it fair then to say, as a platform, the platform is what's delivering things like high availability, disaster recovery, metro, regional, DR. If I'm using CSI, I have to do all that myself then.
Right. Roll your own.
I'm not getting a platform. I have to roll my own capabilities.
Yeah. And so there's a great slide in the decks that we've kind of put in recently that shows sort of left to right. If you want to develop your own, platform, fully integrated platform with all these advanced services, here's a laundry list of things you've got to consider at every layer of the stack. And there's 50 things to choose from, right? So it becomes this massive, very complex integration effort, which is, anytime you introduce a new layer of abstraction or a new technology or whatever, it's risk, right? So now the flip side, if you look on the other side, if you look at Fusion, it is pre-integrated, it's all tested, it's all designed to work together. Now, so the pushback you'll get as well, I don't want to get locked into like one vendor, and like fair, you don't want to get locked into one vendor, which is why Fusion and OpenShift are open standards based. So there are 10,000, commercial and open source titles out there that you have access to, and they all run on OpenShift. So you can build your application environment however you like, but if you think about the platform you're running those applications on as being kind of a necessary precursor to having those applications functional in production, like don't do it backwards. Don't push your applications out with this ramshackle kind of slapped together self-integrated DIY thing and, hope that it works. Why not have an engineered platform designed to scale, designed for production, designed for multi-cloud, and just not have to worry about that?
And that's an important point, Randy. And, I'm going to throw out the term opinionated. And some people run away from opinionated and some people love it. But it's more than just assembling, what Red Hat does and even what we do with Fusion. It's more than just assembling a bunch of pieces, parts, and testing them and throwing them out, as a product. Yeah. We actually made some design choices that are going to optimize the combination of all those components so that you get the best performance, so that you get the best set of features that you need. So it's really important that people think about this because you might think it's just, as simple as grabbing open source projects and duct taping them together, and it's not. Yeah.
So I got a sales mind here, and I got to dumb this down for myself to be able to explain it to somebody else, right? So CSI is an API that, I may have competition that we face that wrap some stuff around it, but it has limitations. It's not a platform. It's, it's an accommodation for basically
it's a driver
leveraging some sort of hybrid Frankenstein design, right? Compared to what we've got, which is built for purpose for the future of what cloud native is all about. It's a platform for cloud native, right? And the things that I don't get is, I might get some automation, which is about productivity, and we definitely want to sell the benefits of productivity, but that's only one element. I also have to roll my own HA, DR, backup, recovery, and then not to mention with HCI, I get all the benefits of life cycle and the hardware integrated as well.
See, we could have just said that at the beginning. We wouldn't have to been talking for the last 25 minutes.
I didn't know it at the beginning, and you guys helped me understand it. So thanks.
No, that was good. That was a good summary, and I think that kind of nails it. It's like, CSI is designed to make storage, like traditional storage, look like Kubernetes operators.
Right.
CNS are Kubernetes operators, so it's like you're cutting out the middleman in a sense.
Yeah.
So cool. Yeah, that was good. I mean, I think that's a good summary. So we should probably close there because we'll just go downhill from there. So why don't we wrap it at that? Good discussion. I'm sure we will have more. Again, check out the CSI community webinar. Hopefully I'll put the link back up on here somewhere. And we'll dive into more detail. Rob, thanks for taking a few minutes. And
thanks, guys.
If you guys have any ideas for future episodes or things you're curious about, let us know. We will make sure to get them on the production schedule and bring in whatever SMEs we need to make that happen. So thanks again, everybody, and talk to you next week.